I had a deep, immense love for nature for the longest time already. During my rehabilitation and just sitting in a chair and lying in bed the whole day, not knowing what my future was going to be, living off a welfare of 160 guilders, more or less $80 every 2 weeks. I knew that was not going to be the rest of my life. So I started to look at what I did have, many things that other people were throwing away. I started to look at what is not being recycled on the island, which I can make a difference, make some money, educate people, and hopefully also get some tourists to take their crap back to their own country. So I had this whole slogan, remade in Curaçao, take your crap back, show which brand it was, what it used to be, and what it had become. I started with that, and before I knew, I was known as the dude that learned to walk again and went from a wheelchair to become a social entrepreneur and to recycle pirate.
Hello and welcome to ReFi Podcast. My name is John Ellison, and I'm very grateful to introduce a Regenerative Story, a new format where we look deep into the actual life of one of the leaders of the ReFi movement who decided to do the work of regeneration within as an equally relevant of the work in the world around us. It's all good for us to go out and pick up plastic and plant trees and try to design new financial systems. But if we're doing this from a heart of extraction that's really serving a deeper underlying unmet need, then are we actually doing this with a regenerative heart? In today's episode, we're going to go and hear about Andy Kirchner, his journey as a little boy growing up in Curaçao with a confusion of identity, a multitude of different cultures and influences, a single mother, a home that was calling for him to find a deeper purpose and meaning. We'll touch on a pretty excruciating accident that is very, very raw and real. And we'll hear about Andy's journey as he overcomes deep loss and finds a new story where he was able to rediscover a part of himself beyond hardship, beyond death, and be a part of a larger system of regeneration in his community, in his soil, and in the water around him. I invite you, as you listen to this, to take this as a moment out of your day. You might find it a little bit hard to do other things, and that's why we've shortened the format to really focus on the core moments of this story. You'll hear my voice come in and introduce and even inquire as to the work of regeneration within your heart as you listen. So thanks for bearing with us as we experiment with a new medium. We'd love to hear how you find this story. And if this moved you, please do reach out to Andy and let him know what happened and what you think that you guys can do together. Because at the end of the day, regeneration really is about us overcoming apparent boundaries and working together towards a more beautiful world.
I was born Andrew Greg Mitchell Clemens Kirchner, a mouthful, 21st of November 1976, here on the island of Curaçao. It was still a Dutch colony back then. And with a single mom, moved to Holland when I was 3 and came back to Curaçao when I was 9 again. So a lot of back and forth there, growing up in different countries, different cultures. So I always say, born in Curaçao, raised by the world. It takes some time to understand the complexity of going through so many cultures in one's lifetime, especially if you consider that the Latin culture is so different than the European Dutch culture. Create an identity crisis like, what am I? Am I a Latino? Am I a Caribeño? Or am I a Dutch European citizen? I grew up for a part in the small village in the Netherlands called Sassenheim. And there were only two not Dutch people living in that. It was one Moroccan family, one Turkish family, and my mom. And because I had a Dutch stepdad, for the kids that was kind of different and difficult to understand. So there was a lot of teasing, and I don't think they even realized that it was racism, but it was like teasing. And I was called peanut butter, or my mom was called peanut butter, because she had a different skin color. She has a brown skin color, browner than me. And that was hard growing up, especially because it was by the Moroccan and Turkish kids that I was called that more than the Dutch kids. So I had some records that I had to settle right there. Sometimes using my hands, sometimes using my tears, sometimes feeling very upset, and sometimes feeling very proud that at least I was different. My mom, coming from a basically poor background, she had the belief that she was born in a certain way and that she would die a certain way, and she kind of like ingrained that in my memory. I remember I asked for something that other kids had at school and that I wanted to, and she said, well, I can't afford that, and that's okay. I was born poor and I will die poor. And the moment she said that to me, there was this rebelliousness that came over me. I noticed how people put themselves in boxes and keep themselves in certain boxes. And I think that's where the pirate in me came out. Like, the only box that I want to fit in is the box that is as flexible as possible, and I can adapt to it without losing myself, without losing my identity.
Now, I just want to pause here and reflect the words of Andy's mother. I was born poor, and I'll die poor. I wonder what shackles were placed upon you, what belief systems crowded around your head as a young child, and how that sits with you today.
I think this is 2012, May 19th, 2012, when my life changed drastically. I went scuba diving with my girlfriend, basically any other Saturday morning. Super easy entrance into the water, super easy beginning of the dive. Best dive ever of my life. And that made us irresponsible. We went too deep for too long. And coming up back, we ran out of air and we had to do an emergency ascent. My girlfriend held her breath and got a lung embolism, and I got the bands afterwards. I saw her fight for her last breath of air in my arms, and I have never felt more hopeless in that moment, seeing someone that I love die in my arms. 11 years later, and it still awakens every emotion in me. The weirdest thing is that it's been the most beautiful dive I've ever done. It's been the most heartbreaking moment I've ever experienced. But it's also the moment where I found something in myself that I didn't know I had. Her last words to me were in Dutch, because she was Dutch. Ik ga dood, I'm dying. And then she lost consciousness. I tried to give her mouth to mouth, and the sea was bringing us more outside instead of bringing us back to shore. And I knew first rule of first aid is bring yourself to safety. And as I let her go to go swim to the shore, I realized that's not the man that I want to be. Either we both get to shore, or no one's getting to shore. That was the moment where I found my inner strength, the real Andy. I brought her as close to the entrance of the bay that I could. There was a jet ski that came out just at that moment. It was like a lucky coincidence. I had to explain this dude what to do, because I can imagine finding two people like that in the water, what it must do to you when you go out for your Saturday morning joyful jet ski trip, and suddenly you find two people that are almost dying in the water. I had to explain to him how he had to go to shore and go get help, how he had to help Debbie to get to shore, how he had to help me get to shore. It took quite a while, quite some effort. And it was in that moment I really learned what training does and why it's so important to train for things and repeat. Because there was the guy in the water that just had a scuba dive accident, that was there in the water, that was panicking, that was in pain, that was concerned. And then there was the dive professional that knew exactly what to do, how to do it, and that was telling me in the back, like, keep talking to Debbie, keep telling the dude what he needs to do, shut up, stop stressing, keep breathing, keep focusing, stay calm, stay nice, don't lose your temper. It was one of the most scariest moments I've ever experienced. But it was such a weird calm. As I said, there was this one Andy that was panicking in the water, and there was the Andy that knew exactly what he was doing and what needed to be done. When he finally got me to shore, they put me in the sand, they put an oxygen mask on my face, and lucky enough, there was a dive instructor that I knew that came to sit next to me, and I told him everything that we did from the beginning to the dive to the end of the dive, so there was at least someone that knew what was going on. Debbie was lying on the beach, and I could hear they were working on her, and there were a crowd standing around us, filming us, taking pictures. I could hear Debbie's mother that was on the beach, and she was screaming to the people, go away, step back, leave my daughter alone. And I remember me crying, knowing that I was guilty in whatever was happening, knowing that she's not gonna make it because she's got a lung embolism. I knew what was gonna happen. I knew what was going on. And of course I was afraid for myself. What have I done? How is my body gonna react? What is, finally the ambulance came. First the police came, of course, then the ambulance came, and in the hospital, I think an hour and a half later, they declared Debbie officially deceased. And Debbie's mother came running into my cubicle and screaming, "Murderer, murderer," as I'm lying there and having seizures in the bed because my spine was blocking my nerve flow. Seeing my father and my mother standing next to my bed, and I've never seen my dad afraid, but I could see and I could sense the fear in that moment. I could see the panic in my mom's eyes. And the guilt that was eating me alive in that moment, I do not ever want to feel that again. And I want to make sure that I help people around me to not have to feel that themselves. And that has become a big part of my mission, to help people increase their emotional intelligence and understand what they're going through and how to deal with hefty moments like this.
Let's go ahead and take a moment and just breathe through this experience that Andy just shared. Losing a loved one, fighting for your own life, feeling guilty. If you can give yourself the time and space to breathe and allow the dust of this experience to settle, I'd invite you to just take a few breaths.
First I had to go to Bonaire island, neighboring island, for 10 days to do decompression sessions, stay in the intensive care unit over there, barely hanging by a thread, not knowing if I would survive or die. After 10 days, they said, well, this is about it that we can do. You need to go back to Curaçao, stay 30 days in the hospital there. During that period, I was faced with all the demons that you can imagine of pain, guilt, you name it. During day 20 or something, I could finally move my big toe, and then my knee, and then I was able to roll out of my bed into a wheelchair, and they found me on the hallway, starting my journey of kicking ass. I really found a purpose and strength in there. When there is nothing to life other than to survive, you will you will survive. I fought so hard. There's this hill outside of the hospital that really goes steep up, and I had this wheelchair that was all shaky. The wheels weren't very well attached. And for some reason, I had the idea that if I could climb that hill with my wheelchair, I was able to do everything. And it's like this Rocky scene where Rocky climbs the stairs and jump on top. Well, that's how I rolled up the wheelchairs all the way up in the heat in Curaçao with the sun on top of me. And once I got on top, realizing that once you go up, you also need to go down. After 30 days, I was released. I went to a rehabilitation clinic where I stayed for 8 or 9 months, which is a journey on its own. 2 moments that really stand out for me. The first one was waking up in the morning and feeling bad that I was being woken up at 5:30 and wanting to whine about it and waiting for the nurse to come and help me. And the nurse said, "No, we're going to do this young man first. You have to wait." And this young man was a boy of 17 years old or 16 that had jumped off a pier, broke his neck, and for the rest of his life would not be able to do anything anymore. Couldn't use his hands, couldn't use his legs, needed help with everything. And here I am, I'm paralyzed from my waist down, but at least I can get out of my bed, get in my wheelchair, go shower, wash myself, and go get my own coffee and prepare my own sandwich. And here I am whining, feeling sorry for myself while he is there. I got out of my bed, went to take a shower, got in my wheelchair and drove to the kitchen to get my cup of coffee. And as I was getting my cup of coffee, I called myself out. I'm like, "Really, dude? Are you this selfish? You're just gonna get your coffee? What about you taking the whole damn can and bring the can to the table so everyone can have coffee?" And it was like one moment of awakeness after another. As I put the coffee on the table and I put my plate down, and a nurse said a nurse said something to me that triggered another thing in me, an anger and but also an anxiety. And I'm like, "You don't get to judge me. I'll judge myself." And in that moment, like, you don't have anything to judge. You got yourself in this situation, so shut up and make it a better situation. I went to another part of the dining area, breakfast area, and took my plate and took all the other plates and started preparing the table for everyone instead of just for me. Because I realized, like, I can do that just for me, but I've done that the last 2 mornings. And the rest is sitting there waiting while I'm eating, and that's not good. So that's where I started taking care of my community right there.
Now, I don't know about you, but I can just imagine in this moment as Andy decides to shift his frustration and anger into an act of service, as he goes to lay out plates on a table not just for himself, but for others. How liberating this must have been, knowing how much it costs to show up every day for people who are unable to maintain their own bowels. And how is this relevant for the work of regeneration in our communities?
And during my rehabilitation and just sitting in a chair and lying in bed the whole day, not knowing what my future was going to be, living off a welfare of 160 guilders, more or less $80 every 2 weeks, I knew that was not going to be the rest of my life. I wouldn't want to live like that. But I didn't know what my future was going to hold either. So I started to look at what I did have and what I could work with. And what I did have was many things that other people were throwing away. I was looking into recycling for the longest time. And I started to look at what is being recycled what is not being recycled on the island, with which I can make a difference, and make some money, educate people, and hopefully also get some tourists to take their crap back to their own country. So I had this whole slogan, made in Curaçao, or remade in Curaçao, take your crap back and show which brand it was, what it used to be, and what it had become. And these were dog food cans, coffee cans, fruit and vegetable cans, things like that. And I started making lanterns out of that because they couldn't be recycled because it was a combination of tin, iron, plastic, and no one was really taking them. So I started with that, replenishing my welfare with that. And before I knew, I was known as the recycled pirate, the dude that learned to walk again and went from a wheelchair to become a social entrepreneur. I had a Canadian tourism consultant come to the island and visit me. And she said, "Why are you playing small? Your story is so powerful. Your product is so powerful. You need to do more with this." And as I'm creating these cans, it's basically I'm drilling one hole at a time with a dart and a hammer, and it's such a meditative process that gives me the chance to really have these very deep inner conversations, really facing all my fears and anxiety, but also dream big and dream far. And I'm seeing all these creations come out of my hand where I thought I wasn't creative. I see my creativity creating money. I'm seeing me being part of a sustainability a conversation on the island that we need to become more sustainable. But that whole sustainability conversation stops there. And it's like, I can't keep going this way. I can't stay this way because sustainability has an end. So I need to find a way to earn more, to create more, that I can give back because I need more people to be doing this. I need more people to know about this. And that's when my coral reef resilience management trainer came into me and like, how do you create touristic areas that are sustainable visiting areas, but can replenish themselves? And I have to apply those techniques to whatever I'm doing now. I can only stand on my legs for 2 hours or 3 hours max, and then I need to lie down and rest. So I need to make sure that whatever I'm creating can surpass that time.
As Andy describes this simple act of poking holes in a tin can, I wonder what repetitive motion you've experienced that drew you into a state of quiet, that gave you the space to reflect upon those most challenging emotions you've been going through in times of hardship and loss. For me, I chose to make my journals by hand for several years after an incredibly challenging experience in India, where my girlfriend nearly died of typhoid. The simple act of sewing the stitches in the spine and writing the words within gave me a depth of connection as I processed this trauma and this pain, this loss that we almost endured. Is there anything that's calling you in your day today, where you can step aside from a screen, either step into nature or step into something with your hands, where you can think with your hands as well as your heart and not always be stuck in the rabbit wheel of the brain?
This is what happened to all of us. It's that damn pandemic, but it's also that beautiful pandemic. It has both sides to it. As the pandemic was coming to the island, I knew what was going to happen to our tourism industry. I knew a hard time was going to come. And I had just done quite some investment in ordering T-shirts for the Recycled Pirate with my own quotes on it. And I just saw my business slowly being strangled. And I knew it's only going to get harder. And right in that moment of insecurity, I get a call from someone in Holland whose name is Luc Weber. And he says, "Hey, Andy, it's Luc. I'm going to do a conference again, this time a digital one, to help people deal with the lockdowns. Are you interested to become a speaker?" And sure, he asked me to talk about mental health. So I did the 8 basic guidelines of self-mastery. It's this little program that I wrote, how I dealt with my issues and what I was using for my coaching practice. And first of all, I got amazing feedback on it from the participants. I immediately got a coaching client at like 30 minutes after I did the conference. So yay for me. But also I saw how disciplined and hardworking Luc was and what he was doing, how he was trying to reach people. And I was like, I want to be part of that. Let me help you. It was still called Innovation C back then. We were still in the time that gas on the main network of Ether was just a few cents. So Luc taught me how to work a MetaMask. First time I got in touch with crypto. And first time I got in touch with a DAO. I had no clue what a DAO was. I voted for the first time, and I was like, this is so powerful. But we need more human interactions in this, and not just not the technology for the sake of technology, but we need the human connection in this. And that's when I jumped in with 2 feet. Let's say the pandemic took about 2 years, and all the projects that we were working on came together and as Kolektivo. And I helped put the team together. Got this kick-ass lady that does spread the love on the island. Yolanda Wiel involved. She became the grant and community lead. I found this other girl that was just a very artistic eye to do events and art. Kiara Wanga, and slowly by little we brought a team together that could create even more impact than just Luc and I. So it was a very nice puzzle pieces that we went to find together. Kolektivo is a collective of awesome people that want to create a regenerative economy, a regenerative network, building it up from the ground up. We started building a community and building a food forest to test everything that could be tested, what wasn't working, what was working. And we're still doing that to this day because the soil here in Curaçao is treacherous, and together with the sun and the salt wind. We experimented with a stable coin, first Curadai, and we're experimenting with K-Gilder. And we really made the effort to help small change makers feel seen and feel supported.
I love how Andy describes this pandemic as both a blessing and a curse. We now live in a society where masks are no longer commonplace. We're not worried about this thing anymore. But there was a time where this chaos plagued all of our lives. What did this stir in you? What remnants and ashes, what residue remains? Is there anything from that journey that you need to process? Anyone for whom you need to ask forgiveness?
Well, don't fight what you can't win. Don't try to prove things wrong. Don't try to change the past, but work towards the future. Work towards possibility. Work towards something that you can create and that you can recreate and expand with. And do that with the most light that you have within you. We are all hurt by things that we have experienced in life. Doesn't matter if it's by my accident or by something your mom has said or by someone that bullied you at school. We are all hurt. And it's up to you to heal yourself. It's up to you to heal the people around you. And only if we start healing ourselves and the people around us, we are able to heal our earth and our environment. Because as long as people are struggling to make ends meet, as long as we have people struggling with their anxiety and fears, and it's going to maintain a struggle. So you need to put your ego to the side and understand like, hey, this is not just about me. This is not just about what I want. This is not just about what I'm feeling or experiencing. This is about what I can give John. This is about what I can give Clara. This is whatever I can give to the world. And make that effort. Not say it, not think that you're doing it, but like really make that effort. If you need to suffer for it, suffer for it. Because you are not alone. You can't fix this alone. We can't even fix it together. We're going to need everyone and everything in this fight for a better planet, for a better climate. There is not one battle that we can let slide. But please do not just be negative and only see the bad things that are happening. Also see the good things.
And this moment was the key moment for me. As Andy describes, the work within being essential to unlock the work around us. Imagining his entire journey from losing his partner in a diving accident through to the rehab center and into making treasures out of people's rubbish. And meeting Luke, being involved in incredibly powerful technology-driven experiments with a humble recognition that he doesn't have it all figured out, but he's willing to give it a shot, to play his role in this symphony, to share his voice, to share his learnings, and to give hope for generations to come. Who in your life do you know is going through a time like Andy? What in your heart has been stirred to stand bravely and to take the wheelchair and push up that hill until you get to the top? I invite these inquiries as initial investigation to the work of regeneration within. If this is a path that you feel called to walk, we'd love to come alongside you. Don't journey alone. There's an amazing community all over the world, here at ReFi DAO in Lisbon and in dozens of cities all over, meeting every month, committed to do this work of regenerating the earth and regenerating ourselves as one beautiful living expression of what it means to be human. Amidst climate change, biodiversity collapse, and social injustice, we hope you'll join us and look forward to seeing you in the flesh. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. I would be so incredibly grateful if you could leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. This helps us reach more listeners, attract amazing guests, and ultimately get the story of regeneration out to a wider audience. It takes just a couple seconds and makes a massive difference. Thanks so much, and do let us know if there's any guests that you'd love to hear from. We'd be very grateful to hear from you. Thanks.